Alright, exciting session today. Ciao a tutti! Ciao a tutti e vieni qui ancora una volta. Vieni il mio secondo nome. Ho 20 quest'anno. Ho 20 anni quest'anno. San Giovanni è anche il mio santo patrono. Questo è il mio secondo mese di apprendimento dell'italiano. Spero di parlare con il Papa in italiano un giorno. Potrei non farlo in tempo per vedere Papa Francesco, quindi probabilmente il prossimo Papa. Non parlo ancora bene l'italiano, quindi parlerò inglese nel mezzo. So I know the Pope starts to speak English, but I had this random thought one day, crazy thought, that it'd be nice to speak to him in a language that he's familiar with. Maybe 10 years from now, I get to see his Pope mobile driving by and I get to shout, Padre Santo, Dio ti benedica. Totally worth all the grammar that I have to learn. Probably never ever get to talk to him, to have tea with him, but just thought it was a funny idea. But on a more serious note, I think Italian is a really beautiful language and I started learning it seriously. Been doing it for about 2 months now. So what I've been trying to do is immerse myself in the whole Italian culture rather than just focusing on the language and its rules. Wow, il cielo è così bello. Molto bene, molto bene. So I started with the most common irregular verb, essere, to be. First I was a bit lost when I saw the structure of we start with the first person, second person, third person. So it's I am, you are, she is. So io sono, tu sei, lei, lui, ha, noi siamo, voi siete, and loro sono. Trying to work on my pronunciation also. So what I do is I learn grammar from YouTube. I think Professor does it the best. I'll link in the description if you're interested, and there are lots of great channels out there actually. And then I use Duolingo for practice. So normally you won't be able to conjugate your own sentences with Duolingo, which is, if you don't know what that is, that's an app where it helps to learn any language and many languages over there. Like you fill in the blanks and then slowly moves on with increasing difficulty to questions with that are open-ended and you have to write yourself. But I used to have premium, but now they have the hearts feature where I run out of heart and I just so learning from memory from Duolingo is not enough. So and Italian has feminine and masculine words that I'm still trying to grasp fully. I think that is mostly learnt by example, where you keep on getting new, expanding your vocabulary, and becomes sort of second nature to myself. So that's a bit of a learning curve, but not the hardest. The hardest will be your di, da, a. At this point of time, I realized I have to learn the prepositions in Italian, and there's a whole chart there. And nel, nello, nel, nella, ne, nelli, nelle. Check it out. So normally they follow a set of rules, this feminine and masculine. For example, tazza, a cup, ends with letter A, so it's likely to be feminine. So that's the general rule for feminine singular. So tazza, ragazza, and ragazzo, it ends with an O, so that's likely to be male. So for boy, if you learn, I think you probably can start with this feminine and masculine gender, and you can sort of get a feel of what they are. I watch Italian conversations with English translations so I can get a feel of the Italian culture and slang, but actually Italian is not all about moving your hands. Yeah, so every time I learn Italian, someone asks me, is it about moving your hands? No, I don't know, I don't want to misappropriate the culture, but that's a pretty strong stereotype. In Italian, I've learned that to be formal, you would move from the second person to you to the third person lei. So you move back one step away from them, sort of making distance but maintaining that formality. So I think in English it would be do you have a cup of coffee? But in the formal way in Italian, direct translation would be does she have a cup of coffee? But you're talking to the person herself. Today is telling time in Italian. So just a progress update. I've been doing this little notebook of all the Italian words. So it's going pretty well. There are some, most of them follow this table format where you have the masculine, feminine, singular and plural, so it's easy to memorize the table. Found this guy, 99 Problemi, and he's pretty good, and there's quite a lot of examples, so I don't actually have to get a course. Things should be free, it's the internet. Sono quasi le 5, sono quasi le 9:05. Last thing when I'm free, I'm doing simple tasks like photo editing and maybe video editing with no audio. I'll play Italian conversations that go really fast and I don't really understand what they're talking about, but it's a bit hard to catch up. And I think this really helps with you getting to know with pronunciation and getting the slang of everything. Just getting it into your mind, for example, getting how the flow works. So it's much easier to conjugate regular verbs that don't really change. For example, irregular verbs are verbs that change their whole body. I never knew anything about grammar. I never really bothered. I went by feel all along. Literature, I don't really read grammar too. And so getting this feel is really important. For example, irregular verbs would be the hardest to learn. For example, I eat, and then you change I ate. I don't even know what tense that is, but the whole word completely changes. And for Italian, there are these irregular verbs, essere, avere, and all these that completely changes the word. So I think that is a bit the tricky ones you have to start with, and then after that you can, once you've ready with that, you can sort of get the pattern for the regular verbs. For example, I pray, I am praying, I prayed. So it's quite natural to pray, which is the infinitive form, which is the one that doesn't really say much about it but only the word. So for the past tense, I prayed, so you add the ed, and for present continuous, you just Google to make sure what it is, adding the ing, so praying, so you can generally get a feel of it, most words, without even actually searching the dictionary. So I think listening to Italian conversations without actually bothering to understand fully and while doing something else really helps it to get into your brain, to wire your brain to think in Italian. So it's natural because we've heard so many forms. Same goes for Italian. When you're referring to a group of people, using the word loro, which is they, you can roughly guess. For example, I have, io ho, which is the first person, and then we move to they. When you convert it to they, it's loro hanno, so the o becomes hanno, so io ho becomes loro hanno. And then I go, io vado, and it changes to they go, loro vanno, so the vado becomes vano. You can see the double N is quite of like a common thing. So I drink, io bevo, and they drink, loro bevono, so the N sort of syllable inside, ono kind of thing. So io ho, the o changes to ano, and you can see the pattern, right? So it's kind of interesting linguistics about this. I'm really keen, and when you get it right, you're like, oh, wow, Google Translate, I get it in Google Translate. And so I'll translate back and forth in Google Translate. I have Google Translate on my phone at the front screen now. Whenever I think of something and don't know, I'll just type it out, and I'll translate back and forth to see, because it might not be 100% accurate, so I'll try to see where there's a bit of variation and how I can accommodate to that. I went to an Italian restaurant and I wanted to speak in Italian, to try un tavolo per due, per favor, and I could can go to the waiter and say un tavolo per due, but the waiter was Chinese. So not a good way to think in Italian. I learned this from online, rather than translate the word from English to Italian. You might have some slippages. It's kind of weird when my sister looks at me and I'm just mumbling, wow, il cielo è così bello, and she's like, what? So I can actually, oh my gosh, my light is not on. Oh no. Oh man, I forgot to on my light. Maybe my next update I'll be at the window of the Pope's office having a chat with him.